let's go back to where we started. And Luke, I will bother you first. I had a few people ask, and I was also going to ask for some color on the PEA. So you didn't even really talk much about the fact that you are progressing a PEA right now. So let's talk about what it's going to look at, why you're doing it, even though you're in the midst of such a resource expansion program.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. We have a PEA that we put out in 2015. That PEA became stale dated once we put out our updated resource. The main change there is we went in our 2015 PEA from about 712,000 ounces of in-pit resource to 1.22 million ounces. That's a combination of additional ounces that we discovered, as well as by reducing the cutoff grade. So that historical PEA, now stale dated, had very good economics, about $200 million pre-tax NPV, after tax $130 million, after tax IRR of about 34%, around 1560 gold. So our view is by updating the PEA, we'll continue to underpin the value of the company. And that was something that for me really stood out when I went through the whole process of having 5 investment banks, or we went through the process of having 5 investment banks cover us from a research perspective. The value that they put on having those independent numbers that came with that PEA to be able to produce their models, comes up with valuations, so on and so forth, was what was really important. So our view is that will further underpin the value for our shareholders. But the main message is we think where we're going to create the most value is by exploring and growing this to a 4 or 5 million ounce plus resource. But while we're doing that, we will continue to update the economic studies, and that's the reason we're doing it.
Fair enough. That makes good sense for sure. Stepwise process, right? There's an end goal, but there's steps to take along the way. Let's touch on Ghana for a minute. I know you and I had an update last week, and one of the things that it just sort of reminded me of is Ghana as a jurisdiction. So I know, generally speaking, I get lots of questions from subscribers and followers about jurisdiction, jurisdictional risk. Africa is often lumped into one thing there. Let's talk about your experience in Ghana, the advantages actually that Ghana offers you, and why it perhaps doesn't deserve to be lumped in that sort of categorization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll happily discuss with anyone offline as well why we view Ghana as a tier 1 jurisdiction, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, first and foremost, I mean, the largest producer in Africa, you look at all the major companies that are operating there: Newmont, Goldfields, Anglo, Kinross, a number of those companies with multiple producing assets in country. I think that speaks for itself. And I mean, any majors who go to any jurisdiction in the world, they do a lot of due diligence, and that is one of the critical things that they evaluate when they're mining. So to have all of those majors in country, I think speaks for itself. Infrastructure-wise, I talked about it in the presentation. We got great infrastructure. Mining services, I know one of the issues a lot of companies around the world are having is getting assays turned around in a reasonable amount of time. We're getting our assays turned around in 2 or 3 weeks. All of that information feeds into our exploration program, and it's another thing. Again, Ghana's a great place to operate, skilled labor, lots of mining services, and one of the reasons why we love being there. Another thing is security. When Greg and I were there in November, we were 7 or 8 days into the trip, and we were bouncing around in the back of a truck, and I looked over at Greg and I said, "Greg, you realize we haven't talked about security once? We had crisscrossed the whole country. We had spent time in Accra. We were walking around the way you'd walk around the streets of Vancouver or London or anywhere else." So security-wise, they had an election in December. That was a free and fair election. No issues in and around that election, and that's been the case in Ghana for years. So again, there's lots of reasons, and I can talk for hours about it. But again, I'll point back to the number of major companies that are operating in country as a real testament to what a great jurisdiction it is.
For sure, and I know there's others on the call here who are quite jealous of your 2 to 3 week reference there for assay turnaround. Here's sort of a catch-all question, which is you're doing a lot. I mean, 58,000 meter drill program. You have that whole pyramid of things that you're working on. So resource expansion, drilling into known target areas, testing new areas, a huge amount of work. what I guess is the one thing, to put you on the spot, that you are most excited about at Enchi over the next 12 months?
Exploration results. We've put out so far about 13,000 meters of a 58,000 meter program. So over the next 6 months, we're going to continue to have results coming out every 3 or 4 weeks. So that's ultimately what we're most excited about. And the fact that it's a 3 or 4 prong approach, low risk exploration that'll add ounces, some higher risk exploration as we target new targets for the first time ever. So it's a real combination, but I think that ultimately is the best approach and the best way to de-risk it for shareholders. And then I think to see the economics that come out of this updated PEA, I mean, that can be, again, real fundamental value. And you talked in your intro about, being able to buy companies that are, potential development as well as exploration. So I'd put us into that category where we've got robust economics from a PEA with huge district scale exploration upside. So you've got that nice combination, and we feel we'll be able to really grow the size of the resource.
Absolutely. I've said for years that one of my favorite kinds of projects are the ones that have that fundamental value, but that also have that exploration splash going on. And Newcore definitely sits in that category. I'm going to move on for the moment. I may have time to circle back, but we'll keep it going for this interest of time. Chad, let's talk about Selena. First of all, when I first started talking to you about, this company that you were putting together or that you had been putting together, Selena wasn't really an asset that we talked about much. We talked about the other assets more. But of course, it has catapulted to almost the front of the list now. And you've had a very stepwise approach there in terms of so can you talk about how you approach the exploration at Selena and why you approached it that way, and what position that puts you in terms of understanding the asset now?
Yeah, I think when we first when I pitched it to you the first time around, Selena was like it never hurts to have an oxide play in your portfolio, right? And
yeah.
The good thing about exploration is you get surprised sometimes. So that's what Selena's done. So we were focusing on it as a gold project, and we kept on drilling and trenching, and we were getting these incredible, widespread silver results with a gold kicker, but we were focused on it from a gold perspective. So we kept on being like, man, this would be a heck of a gold deposit if it wasn't for all this silver. And one of our directors was like, I'm struggling to see the issue here. So we kind of refocused Selena as a silver dominant deposit, and suddenly the continuity is really looking incredible. We do at all of our projects, we collect all the baseline data first. It's a systematic approach. You map it, you do the geophysics, you do the surface geochemistry, and only then do you advance it. It's all a de-risking exercise, right? You advance it to a point where, okay, am I going to put the high dollar spend into actually drilling these assets? And so in Selena's case, we drilled it. It kept on getting better every single phase of drilling. And by phase 3, we were confident announcing what is a bona fide, grassroots discovery in Nevada. It's never had an intercept of any significance reported on it. So yeah, we're very excited about how it's coming together.
Do you want to put some of those silver, oxide silver shallow intercepts sort of in context? It's hard, I think. For silver, we're so used to talking about deep veins or high grade veins. So do you want to just try and put, silver oxide at surface in context?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you look at a silver deposit underground type of thing, and you need to have a lot of times 1,000 gram per ton silver equivalent or better, right, to make the economics make sense. What we're hitting is outcropping oxide mineralization at surface, and that completely changes the economics or the potential economics. So for us, we're hitting on average anywhere from 60 to 100 grams per ton silver equivalent over thick intercepts, generally 30 to 50 meters. And just to put in perspective, like the Core Rochester mine is the only silver dominant open pit operating in Nevada right now. Their life of mine head grade is 23 grams per ton silver equivalent. So we're drilling, anywhere from 2 to 3 times that grade at surface. The deposit's open. We've already defined a kilometer on strike to the west and a kilometer to the south. So I think there's considerable room to grow it.
Okay, let's shift over to Bell Creek. Again, that name of project isn't one that we talked about originally, because you used to lump that in with Carlin East as one thing to talk about. Now you've segmented out Bell Creek because it really is interesting with its proximity to, exciting drilling by Newmont Gold or Nevada Gold Mines. Barricade Nevada Gold Mines, they don't talk much about what they're doing, but you know just about every geologist in Nevada. So do you want to sort of paint a bit of a picture of what your understanding might be going on over there and how that might, I mean, you're 200 meters away from the property line. That's a very short distance.
Yeah, no, we were lucky to pick that up. We actually did a deal at Swift with a local ranching family, and they said, "Hey, would you like a chunk of land beside Goldstrike?" And I said, "Yes, please. That sounds great." And so that's how we brought in. It's private ground, 100% owned by us under the lease agreement. And what's really exciting is, Barrick is now, we're under the understanding that they're actually beginning to do underground development from the Meikle deposit out to Ren. So they're putting serious money and effort behind advancing the Ren deposit, which is why they're now drilling 4,000 foot holes out in the sinkhole breccia area, is trying to expand that known resource. So, Bell Creek is one of those kind of, it really is, I called it a lottery ticket, which maybe is a little glib, but that's really what it is. Like if Barrick comes in and they have a successful drill hole there, it's pretty hard to say that mineralization isn't going to extend onto our property in some way, shape, or form. So, we're waiting patiently for them to put out results. Every quarter, they've been putting out, basic exploration results. So I think we'll see something on this next quarter, hopefully from them, and then we'll decide how to advance it from there.
Gotcha. Last question. Results, when you're doing the kind of exploration work that you're doing at Swift and Carlin East, I mean, these are deep targets. They're, you're drilling deep and blind. So do you want to just talk a bit about timeline, process, in the sense of setting expectations? So when people are following the story, do we expect you to hit it right away? Like, how do you frame that for people?
Well, I think the market's pretty binary, right? Either you hit or you don't, and there's not a lot of in between. But to be honest, real grassroots discoveries, and people on this panel can attest to that, they take time and they take good geologic work, right? So it took us 3 phases of drilling at Salina to make that discovery, and 22 holes. We've only drilled 2 holes that actually hit target, 3 holes total at Swift right now. We've drilled 2 holes at Carlin East. The whole goal is, every program is an attempt to de-risk that program to the next step, right? And for us, what we now know is we have at Swift, for example, we have a huge buried intrusion sitting right in the center of what is 2 known gold intercepts. There's a gold mine 2 kilometers to the east on the edge of our property, and then a known intercept 1.5 kilometers to the west. So right in the center of that is a big buried intrusion. We drilled it, and every major gold deposit in Nevada is directly associated with the margins of buried intrusions. 40, 50 million ounce gold mines like Goldstrike. So what we're seeing now is the right setup for a big deposit. Now we got to go in, do a bunch of drilling, and vector in on the higher grades.
Yeah, so it just might take some time.
Takes time, yeah.
For sure.
In the short answer, yes, it takes time.
Fair enough. Okay, thanks, Chad Bauman. I'm going to bother you with a few questions. Do you want to set the stage a little bit, looking back at Canasil's sort of, I mean, you talk about how you have a whole team in Mexico and you have your workers down there, but talk a little bit about your history in Mexico and what that means for 2 things: your ability to operate down there sort of efficiently and effectively, and your knowledge of sort of like the deposits in the area and how they were discovered, and what that matters as you go forward with La Esperanza and Nora.
I think that the key was set right from the start when we started working in Mexico, and we've been there for some time now. For almost 15 years, we've been working there. And one of a few of the key principles were, first of all, to have a local team right from the word go, because we're a small exploration company, obviously, often short of funds, etc. So the temptation is to send in part-time expats or employ part-time exploration geologists, etc., to do the work. And we felt that was not the right way to go. And when we needed a full-time company team in Mexico, so we set that office up right away, and we have the same. We hired a highly qualified exploration geologist, Herme Enriquez, who was for about 15 years the chief geologist at the Luismin Tayoltita mine, which was one of the largest silver gold mining operations in Mexico and in Durango. And that mine was actually acquired by Wheaton River Minerals, which then became Gold Corp, and has now since been acquired by First Majestic. So that, I think, has produced about 20 million ounces of gold over the years that it's been operating. So Erme was key to that. Having worked 15 years at Tita, he knew the area around Durango and northern Zacatecas like the back of his hand. He'd visited a lot of projects, knew a lot of different areas to look, and then that formed the basis for selecting the projects that we selected in Durango and northern Zacatecas. And again, it was very tempting because you get offered a lot of exciting projects. Mexico is a prolific country, amazing mineral endowments. So you can be in Guanajuato, you can be in Nayarit, you can be in San Luis Potosí, you can be Sonora, Chihuahua. It's huge. But we really constrained it, and we said it has to be within a couple of hours driving distance of our office in Durango. We put that focus in right from the beginning, right from the project acquisition stage. And then, the projects had to meet all the other requirements. They had to have access, they had to have water, they had to have electricity, all the things that you needed if you were successful in a discovery that it had the potential to become a mine. So all this was built into the equation. Now, we are also a very conservative company, very concerned with dilution. The company's never been rolled back, never been reorganized in the many years. So the pace of progress was slow. And as Chad said, when you do the systematic work across these projects and multiple projects, it takes time. You've got to do a lot of background work. You do the satellite imaging, you do the aerial geophysics, you do thousands of surface samples, you do all the geology and everything to qualify the targets so that you're not exploring with a drill bit, which is a very expensive way to go about it and to ensure the maximum chance of success. So all this was part of the thinking and the equation that was put in to select the right type of projects and to have the right type of team in place that you can execute on the projects once you see the potential to go forward.
Now you've tapped into some of that potential, certainly, at Nora. Do you want to talk a bit about, the intercepts at Candy were very good, and the market, it's tough, I think, for the market to understand. You see, narrow, good intercepts, but only a few of them. How much drilling, or what are the next steps at Candy, and how much drilling do you think, assuming success, you need to do on that opportunity before it has to go for us to become apparent?
Well, it has to go step by step. You look at a project like La Esperanza, which we've moved ahead. You start with a couple of thousand meters, you're poking around, you're seeing the tops of veins, you're getting the right kind of mineralization. Again, it all has to line up with everything else you looked at, with the geology, neighboring properties, neighboring mines, etc. And you keep monitoring that to see if you're on track. And if you are, then you keep stepping it up. So we did close to a couple of thousand meters at Nora. We would hope that the next one would be at least 3,000 to 4,000 meters, because on the Candy vein, we're hitting just at the top of the vein on a vein that we traced for 3 kilometers. We're just looking at 4 sections over a 500-meter central section. Certainly the high-grade hits we had in number 4 and number 6, you've got to drill below those. Definitely, it was very tempting even when we were drilling it. We were seeing the intercepts. We were saying, well, okay, just point the drill and put another one below it. But you have to be disciplined. You don't know. You don't have the assays. The stuff looks good. You never know. We've been through that so many times before. You don't know until the assays come back. But really, when the assays came back on the hits on Nora, on the Candy vein, they really were way beyond expectations. With these type of things, you're looking at 2, 4, 5, 10 grams gold, a few hundred grams silver. I know a lot of companies have been coming back with these very high grade intercepts, but you look at, I think it was instructive. Silvercrest Metals recently put out, I think the day before yesterday, a news release which summarized something like 200 drill holes that they've done at Las Chispas. And when you look at that, then you see what the average widths are across 200 drill holes in an epithermal system, and what the average and a range of grades are. And these kind of grades where you're hitting up to 10, 20, 30 grams gold and a kilo, 1.3 kilo silver, these are amazing on a maiden drill program. I mean, usually you do this drill program, you're hoping to hit a couple of sort of snippets of the top of a vein and say, okay, we got some encouragement. And there we are, just whatever, less than 100 meters below surface. We're hitting these mineable widths and extremely high grades. So you definitely want to go below them. You want to go between those two holes. You want to step out, 50, 100 meters from those holes. I mean, really, the sky's the limit. If it wasn't a question of concern about dilution and budgets, etc., you'd go with a 5,000-10,000 meter drill program there. And but at the same time, you have to be disciplined too. And at the same time, you mustn't get carried away and again get tempted to explore with the drill bit and say, okay, that looks good, so I'll just go 200 meters away and just put another drill hole, etc. You have to do a lot of background and detailed work, and that's why we put out the news release yesterday, just showing the geochem where you got 1,200 geochem samples, and then you get this across a range of metals. You get the silver, gold, copper, lead, zinc. You get all the pathfinder minerals: arsenic, antimony, bismuth, cadmium. All of them line up and glow up in the same, highlighting the same areas. You say, well, wow, there's something really going on here. And I don't discount, we're looking at doing some additional geophysics, quite a lot more geology, lots more boots on the ground, etc., to qualify all these targets. But definitely, I mean, it really is game on at Nora. And, we talked about La Esperanza. I mean, that one is more advanced. We've done 10,000 meters of drilling. Again, it's not a resource estimate or an I-43-101, but we just do calculations based on drill intercepts that we're hitting. We have over 7 million ounces on the drilling that we've done at La Esperanza, just based on drill intercepts. And that's on a space of 400 meters by 250 meters on a vein that we think could extend for 5 kilometers. And then we look at La Colorada with Pan American Silver next door to us, where they're now down to 1,000 meters. Then, if these things are there, they could be very big. Again, as you've pointed out very correctly, this is all high risk. It's all exploration. It's all ideas. But you put the pieces of the jigsaw together and pieces of the puzzle together, and you say, oh no, I mean they're fitting together. So we got a shot over here, and now it's with the drilling and the work that you have to qualify it and advance it.
Okay, I have two more questions for you that I will roll together and ask you to answer very briefly because I have to get to two other panelists here. The two came in from the audience. What's your cash position? And someone referenced a plan from 2 years ago to roll your BC assets into a spin-out company. Is there any life or thought left in that plan?
Yeah, very quickly, the cash position is relatively low. It's about a million right now. It's good for the program at La Esperanza, the drill program and our operating expenses, etc. I mean, it's low for a reason. Is because we're very careful with dilution. Last year, as you noticed, we raised with increasing share prices, and that's the way we plan it, and that's the way we do it in order to fund the company with minimum dilution. On the second question on the spin out, yeah, that's still, the concept behind that was that on the BC projects, you can fund it with flow through, and we didn't want to dilute the Mexico projects by funding with flow through on the BC projects. So that's an idea that's still current. We didn't do it at the time in 2017, although it was approved by the shareholders because copper and gold prices were low. Now they're picking up. So there are possibilities to take a look at that again, and we're actually updating all the information, the technical reports on the BC projects, et cetera, with a view to any opportunities that may come up for that.
Gotcha. All right, thanks, Bauman. Kevin, let's rotate over to you. One of the hard things about quick success is that the bar is set very high. And I say, that was certainly was the experience at your last company, where you hit into it, laid out amazing targets, hit into a discovery right away. The market got very excited. I think the market wanted the same from Evergold, but discovery just isn't that easy, right? So, so I guess you just need more time. I mean, that's certainly been the premise of what you described at Golden Lion and Snowball. Specifically at Snowball, are you going to be more able to access the drilling? I know one of your big challenges last year at Snowball was just physically getting up there, getting a pad, figuring it out. Do you feel more confident in being able to access drilling at Snowball, and then just being able to maybe live up to some of those expectations at both projects in the next round?
Yes, short answer, very much so, Gwen. Snowball, it's always helpful to have one season of work under your belt. None of us had ever actually worked a big program like that on that particular property. So there were unique characteristics to do with the topography that really impacted the drilling. But yes, definitely next year, the target that we really have our eye on, which is just beyond where we were able to reach with the drill last year, that will be a significantly easier target to hit. We're sort of thinking in terms of 3 or 4 pads that would target the zone. This is not only high-grade gold and silver, in the vein system, obviously, but possibly disseminated style gold over much broader intercept widths. That's what we appear to have put our finger on there. So, yeah, we're feeling pretty confident about being able to hit. I mean, really hit.
Let's shift focus to the new thing, Rockland. You laid out what you know about the asset so far. There's probably more digging yet to do, but what work does Evergold need to do before you would be ready to start drilling there? What's your concept?
Well, I think the plan is a methodical program, which shouldn't take too long to unfold, comprising mapping, geochemistry, geophysics over the Rockland mine and over Rockland East. And I think we're thinking in terms of putting the drills on probably next winter, which would fit very nicely with our plans for Golden Line and Snowball as well this summer. But yeah, we need to do that data compilation, do our own assessment of the drill results, and then really try to zero in on where we have to go with the drills.
Gotcha. I think it's, it's interesting that Rockland was available. It sounds like there's a lot of work done. There's a lot of promise in some of that historic work. Just out of curiosity, do you want to tell us the process of finding that asset? Because I think people recognize that there's a lot of competition for assets, especially in Nevada these days. So how did that play out?
That's true. It was truly, I think Darwin Green, one of our directors, would say, it was a real coup picking it up, and we should feel very good about it. Part of the reason was just fortuitous. When our key technical advisor, Charlie Gray, was down there, in November, and both Darwin had known the property vendor going back a few years. Charlie was down there, and Darwin brought it to Charlie's attention as a good prospect that he liked. So Charlie was able to go and visit it. At the minute, there are very few people able to really travel from outside the country easily down there and really look at these properties, because most of the properties at an early stage in Nevada are being worked by Canadian companies. So we had a bit of an edge that way, and that's how it happened.
There you go. And then once you're ready to drill, the seasonality plague will no longer be upon Evergold.
No, that's right. But I do want to emphasize that by far the main reason we picked it up was for the property itself. Really, that gold zone at Rockland East, it does appear to be an intact epithermal system. We're looking at the halo, and it's a really big gold zone, low grade gold zone, arsenopyrite. It's there over 800 meters, and it's got high grades within it. So presumably that's just the upper part, and we get a little below. We should cross your fingers, get lucky with some very high grades potentially. And it won't take long to get there, because we're not talking We're not talking depths that are deep by Archean standards.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to move on to Alexandra. We've been online here for quite some time, so I want to make sure I get through some questions for Empress. Endeavor Financial, obviously a key relationship for you. I mean, the due diligence team that they are making available to you is crucial. What's Endeavor's advantage in this side of things? One person sent in a question specifically, like, why would Endeavor ever pass opportunities on to Empress and not just keep them for themselves? So can you describe like how this is mutually beneficial or how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Endeavor is a financial advisory firm. So they provide advice to different mining companies to get into production or whatever it is. They're not an investment company. So that's where we're able to team up and work with them. And they see these opportunities that Empress can then invest in on the smaller side of the market, the $1 to $10 million range.
Right. So by having a stake in Empress, Endeavor, when they see an opportunity that they like and that would fit the bill for Empress, they can remain exposed to it if it becomes an Empress option.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's another important thing to note with all three of our strategic partners. They're all significant shareholders in the company. So they're benefiting the same way the shareholders do as we grow and create value.
Absolutely. I would say okay, can you also, speaking of strategic shareholders, Ascendo Banco, I mean, you described that relationship to some extent, but I know one of the things that stood out to me when you and I conversed about it was that Ascendo has a bit of a unique role in funding mining development projects in Mexico. Do you want to speak to that a bit? Because I think it solidifies why that relationship has so much potential.
Yeah, Ascendo has a specific charter that allows them to invest into mining companies. And they're very unique in the sense of Mexico that they're actually able to invest in mining companies and on the smaller side of things. So they're seeing the companies that are right in the same, align with where we want to look, the smaller to mid-tier companies. And as they're a bank, they're able to provide foreign exchange services, regular banking, all types of services to these companies, and then able to help them find the financing solutions they need. Again, ties in with us being able to provide a royalty or a stream. And Ascendo Banco is very well connected in Mexico. It's great working with a group like that really knows the country and the government and the unions and off-takers and mining contractors. So we're able to really vet stuff quickly.
Yeah, for sure. This one is perhaps a bit more arm wavy, if that's a thing to say. Sort of buying Empress today is probably largely about the pipeline. And you described a pretty interesting pipeline of potential opportunities. I guess an investor would then, the question is how certain they can be that some number of those will come to be. How do you speak to that question? Because if some of those do come to be, then the valuation share chart or relative valuation chart that you showed with some of your peers looks very enticing. So how do you speak to the confidence you have that some of those will come to be?
We're working forward and advancing as many as we can right now, and opportunities are coming to us all the time that we're looking at. So it's about bringing the right opportunities that give us the diversification in the portfolio, and then it comes down to be able to execute on that. And that's the team. Endeavor Financial is all about execution. That's what my experience has been, combined with Jeremy. So we all have, everyone's got outstanding reputations in the industry, and it's about delivering and executing in a methodical, structured, disciplined approach.
There you go. Someone wrote specifically asking about the availability of Empress stock for U.S. investors. That's in progress, I understand.
Yeah, we're looking to list on the OTC, and we're examining all of that right now. But we hope to be able to reach out to U.S. investors and be in that market as well.
It's one of those hiccups for those who are watching. You have to list in Canada. That has to be completed before you can start an OTC application. So there's always, by necessity, there's always a pause in that process for sure. And then just on the creation, you're certainly focused on royalty creation. On a philosophical level, I love that because that harkens back to why royalties exist in the first place, is because they're created to help advance projects. And so that, just on a philosophical level, I don't know, is that more satisfying than being in the royalty trading business?
It is. And, it's a lot more fun because you're able to work with these mining companies, and then we're able to be nimble and structure around whether they've got some debt in there or whether they're doing equity, and we're able to really help provide and get them over the line, again, to get the mines into production or to expand on the facilities that they already have. So yeah, it's a lot more nimble. It's a lot more interesting. It's very creative. And it's great being able to work with these companies.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, we've had 2 solid hours of questions, answers, presentations, and thoughts. So I think we're going to call it a day. Certainly thank you to all of my panelists for your presentations, for your time. If anyone in the audience has questions for any of these people, they're easy to find, or you can contact the Metals Investor Forum and we will make sure to make that connection. Otherwise, thanks everyone for your attention. Hopefully you found some interesting tidbits in that time, and we look forward to seeing you again here at the next event.